Hello, class. So you've learned a little bit about John Steinbeck. You've learned something about the Great Depression. You get some pieces of the story in those previous two videos that are all going to come together when we study Of Mice and Men. But there's one more thing, one more aspect that you need to know before we begin next week, and that's what it means to be a naturalist. So you should have watched the video prior to this, and you should have taken some notes on what it means to be a naturalist. But I'm going to run through a couple things here for you as well, and then you'll go on to your last assignment for the week. So what is naturalism? Well, the first thing you need to know is that naturalist writing doesn't contain many descriptions. Although Steinbeck has beautiful passages with a lot of imagery, most of his text is free from things like metaphors, similes, and personification. He doesn't do that a lot. He's pretty straightforward. That's what naturalist writers typically do. The next thing you want to know is that John Steinbeck is going to focus more on sociological conditions in a very objective manner. He also is going to explore conflicts between social classes, especially the exploitation of workers by those in powerful positions. So during the Great Depression, like you learned, you kind of have this social class issue going on where, big bank and money lenders and even like politicians in the government were pretty much running the show in the country, which is not unnatural or abnormal, but a lot of our citizens in the United States were starving to death and were losing everything. And the government was not taking care of them at all. They were really kind of like sweeping them under the rug and ignoring them. As the Okies moved out to California, they were treated terribly. So when Steinbeck writes, he is definitely exploring the social class divisions that come up. When you read about the ranch, we'll talk about this later, the ranch is definitely like a microcosm of society. So what that means is you've got a giant aspect of society, but the ranch itself is kind of pared down to what society would be like if it were just existing on this small ranch. The setting in naturalist writing provides a detailed look at the most brutal aspects of life. So basically, the concept of things dying, or things being killed, or things being injured, and then other people just really not caring that it happens. It just is. There are going to be some characters in the reading that are definite examples of naturalist characters. One in particular is named Carlson. We will talk more about him later, but he is definitely a perfect example of what it means to be a naturalist. And finally, the reader and the writer become observers of the story. So Steinbeck and us as the audience, we are kind of watching how these characters have no free will. These characters are kind of inserted in specific plots, and they have to deal with their fate. They have no control of their situation. So like the video you watched before this, it's like being a product of your environment. I remind students all the time, the way high school works is, I have students that kind of roll through my class for a semester, and then they're out. And then I get another group that rolls in, and then they're out. In each group that I have, I put new pieces of information on them and send them on their way. So students are kind of like on an assembly line, and the teacher is kind of like the big government that's putting information on top of you. And that's how naturalists pretty much look at society. One more thing to mention, naturalism is an ism. That means it's a belief, which means that not everybody believes in naturalism. But Steinbeck definitely did. Okay, go ahead and move on to the last assignment for the week, and I will see you in the final thoughts.